Welcome, everyone, to our latest podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of the company of Keith Hamill, who's the VP of Sales at Rubberatkins. So over to you, Keith, to share a bit more about yourself with us before we crack on with some questions.
Yes, my name's Keith Hamill. I'm the VP of Sales at Rubberatkins. It's a privately owned business. Our market is basically sealing solutions. And we focus on the niche end of the market, the exotic materials, the harder to seal solutions.
Thank you. And because when I think about sealing solutions, I might think about the interior ceilings of properties. So just give us a little bit more about the product and the markets that you work in.
Yeah, so I would say for the most part, it's rubber seals. The most of our market is the oil and gas market. So anything that's down the hole, we're typically involved in the sealing application from the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. Most of our market is probably in the upstream oil and gas industry. We do a tiny bit in aerospace. So we've actually got some stuff orbiting Earth just now and some satellites. And we've got a focus on the semiconductor market as well.
Excellent, thank you. Very helpful. Well, let's crack on with the first question, if we may. So I know that Rubberatkins sells primarily in the oil and gas industry, and you've also spoken about space and semiconductors there. They tend to be cyclical markets, particularly oil and gas. You know, what impact does that have on your salespeople and the processes that you put in place?
I would say it has a huge impact, and at times it can feel a bit like feast or famine. When the industry's down, as a result of that, people can move around an organization, our organization as well, and it takes time to train people. So sometimes you could be talking to one client, you try to re-engage with them and you can't get a hold of them, and then you see something on LinkedIn that they're working with a competitor. So you have to re-engage, or you're re-engaging with new people as well. So that's one of the impacts for it. I think from a process perspective, if we take COVID as an example, a large part of the company started to work from home, which basically changed the way we operated as a business and as a sales function. And we had to embrace conference calls, video calls like this here, which is funny because sometimes we get onto these conference calls, even to this day, and some people are hiding behind their cameras and have it switched off. I think from a supply chain function, over the last couple of years, that's really drastically impacted oil and gas, not just oil and gas industry in general, whereby I think leading into COVID, we were going through a little bit of a downturn in oil and gas, and then we hit COVID, so it's a bit of a double whammy in the fact that people weren't buying parts and they were running down their stock. So when we started to come out of COVID, the market went crazy, everybody's buying, and that threw so many different issues to manage internally as a sales team, as a production team, supply chain, and then sales are left trying to plug the gaps of who best to serve in industry at that time.
Thank you. And how have you either structured or restructured the team as the market changes in this way?
I think change is a constant in life, and for me, in my time at Rubberatkins, we've changed the sales structure so many times in the 4.5 years that I've been here. In fact, we're just in the process of changing it again. So I do think you need to adapt to the market, you need to adapt to your sales ambition, and make the necessary changes in order to get the growth that you want as an organization.
Thank you. As VP of Sales, you know, how do you go about maintaining growth and sustainability through those peaks and those troughs?
That's the $1 million question, really. I really don't think I know the right answer to that. And to be honest, I don't think there is one. I think as a sales leader and a company, you can only do what's best for you. And what might work one time might not work the next time. So I think it's just trying to do your best. If I take some examples, when we had a downturn in oil and gas, we had to basically downsize the organisation. So I'm speaking more about as a company perspective rather than a sales perspective. And you make some serious decisions on what will be impacted. Will it be engineering? Will it be production? Will it be the sales team? And you've got to make a decision. If you don't make a decision, then I guess that is in itself a decision. So I think you've got to try and do the best to move forward. So I think one of the successes we did is we did retain some of our engineering team. When we came out of that downturn, we did have a decent sales team with us, along with the engineering team, and that enabled us to react quickly. On the downside, from a scaling up perspective, trying to hire people's been the biggest issue, and that still remains one of the key issues for Rubberatkins at the moment.
Okay, and when it comes to leading the team, how do you support them when you've got those periods of downtime?
Yeah, that's a good one as well. I think that for the most part, I like to give people the autonomy to do their job and do it well with minimum micromanagement, so to speak. So I think that's an easy thing to do when the sales figures are high. But when sales figures are low, then you need to focus on those KPIs and metrics to ensure that the sales team is focusing on the right thing, but also bringing those opportunities into the company and as a company deciding where we want to go. I also like to focus on some of the non-value add activities that sales get stuck with from an admin perspective. So recently, over the last few years, we've been trying to create an internal sales team that will gradually take more and more responsibilities of the admin function away from the sales team. And that's been a harder job than I thought, just due to the nature of the work that we have, because it's quite complex and technical in nature.
And is that the difficulty of getting the internal sales team to the right level of knowledge?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What role does value selling have within the sales process? And do you feel selling on value plays an even bigger role during the peaks or the troughs of the cyclical market that you're in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the core functions of our sales team is selling on value. We're known in the market for being the go-to for projects that are difficult. So in that comes trust. At the same time, when we try to do some of the more, let's just say, non-critical items, it's a harder sell for us, but we can see value in it, and it's how do we articulate that value. So if a client's buying a product, say at $100, and our product's $500, how do you convince that organization of the value that you add? You're adding value through productivity, uptime, the general health and the length of time that product will last. If you're speaking to supply chain, they only care about price. If you're speaking to the operations guys, they like that, but at the same time, that can be a threat because you could be reducing the size of that person's team. It's trying to balance between all the value in that chain, I guess, from executives right down to supply chain.
So it sounds like it's trying to figure out what is valuable to each of those stakeholders, and then positioning the solution in language that they would understand that doesn't feel threatening.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And just to
Oh,
add to that, I think
yeah.
that there's one thing that we're trying to do just now. So I think for the most part, we get stuck with supply chain and engineering, and we do have companies where we're very engaged with their executives. But as I alluded to earlier, with regards to changing the team, we've created this business development team recently. The aim there is to focus on our client's client. So we're bridging the gap between us and them, so that we're educating them, so that we can push our clients to come to us for more stuff. So we're showing the value we can add to their client, essentially.
Very good. I mean, that point about, who your normal stakeholders are is interesting. My experience is that salespeople tend to get conversations with the people they sound like. So if you're very technically oriented, you tend to spend time speaking with the engineers at a technical level. If you're more commercially oriented, that can open up the more senior stakeholders in the organization, and you can get to talk to them as well. I don't know if you found that in your own experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody's different from a sales perspective. Everybody's got their own way they like to do things. And I think ours is a technical sale by nature. But at the same time, it's trying to break out from that and have that good mix within the sales team, so that they're all talking together and sharing ideas and adding just something different that they can add to each other, I guess.
Thank you. What would you say has contributed to the success of the team and the business over the last few years? So I know you've grown pretty rapidly, really.
Yeah, I think one is having a good sales team with a good mix of personalities. We just touched on that one there. And I think I have a good sales team who care, one, about Rubberatkins and two, about our clients. So they're very dedicated. I think learning to say no from time to time is key, but also setting clear expectations. And then relationships. For me, relationships are key, and that's back to your value sell there. I think people buy from people, or as I like to say, people buy from friends. They don't buy from people. And I think that's one thing that we've done very good, is we align with a client who values us as a company and what we do, and we partner with them through the good times and the bad. So, and I think that forms a partnership. And I think when you get a partnership, that's a very powerful thing to have as a sales organization.
I fully agree. You mentioned something in your answer there about, learning to say no. What sort of examples have you got around that need to say no?
Well, I think as sales, it's easy just to go and chase a PO and go, yeah, I've got a PO, but it's really understanding, is that the right opportunity for us as an organization? And I think as the company's evolved, and when I came on, that's kind of what the approach was. And what we've done now is we've scaled that back a bit, because internally we've only got limited resources from a production and from an engineering perspective. If we're chasing an order that's only worth, say, 10 or 20 grand a year, is that the right thing? Whereas you could bring another opportunity that could be worth 200 grand per year. So it's focused, to me, it's focusing on the right opportunities.
Excellent. Yeah. Focusing on the right opportunities, understanding maybe the impact, certain opportunities have. It's easy to be a busy fool, isn't it?
Indeed.
So, question one, what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out in a sales leadership role?
In a sales leadership role, I think there's a few things. Ask questions and listen. I think you need to surround yourself with people you can learn from and bounce ideas off. And that could be colleagues, it could be peers. I'll give an example. I was chatting to somebody I used to speak to in Houston, used to work with when I was based in Houston. So I was speaking to him recently, twice this last month, to bounce ideas off each other. So I think that's very important. And I think the other piece of advice would be, don't be scared to hire people who are more experienced than you. I said that because that can really help embrace your skills as a sales leader.
Thank you. What's your favorite sales book, blog, or podcast, apart from this one, of course?
Yes. I think at the moment I'm actually jumping back into a podcast for Gary Vee, just for some of the social media and marketing plan, a bit like this in the effort that you're doing. The other one I have is a book called Hyper Focused by Chris Bailey. The title of it is how to work less and achieve more. But that's a bit misleading, because it's more about how to handle your time when you've got a lot of work on your plate, and how to focus on the right things.
Have you got time to read the book?
I'm not entirely. I'm not through to the end of it yet.
Yeah, indeed. What do you believe are the 3 most important attributes to be a successful salesperson?
I think questioning and listening again. I think that's key to and fundamental to every sales role, but also planning ahead for every meeting. So don't go into a meeting just for the sake of a meeting. What are your objectives? What do you want to get out of that meeting?
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in sales?
Before every interaction with a client, map it out. What do you want to get out of that interaction, whether it's a sales call or a meeting? So it could be things like, what do I want to get out of this call in order to move my opportunity forward? Or at the very least, it's an introduction, and can I get some referrals internally or externally?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I always think about that. What's the end in mind for the meeting? Otherwise, what I've found is that sometimes you can go into meetings, or salespeople can go into meetings, and they've got no real idea about what they want to achieve. They just feel it would be good to meet. And actually thinking about what you want to achieve is going to create more success. What's the poor sales habit that niggles you the most?
I think it's one answer to that, and really, it's really double-ended. I think busy presentations and talking about yourself. Clients don't care how many employees you have or how many locations you have in the world. They just care about how you can help them and add value to their organization.
Brilliant. So I'm in full agreement. As you know, I'm not a fan of the sales pitch that is 90% about the company and barely, if anything, about the customer and their needs. So very good. Very good. Well, Keith, look, thanks very much for that. Thank you for your response to our quick-fire questions. And it's been a great chat. I've really enjoyed it. And I'll see you in real life soon.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. Thank you for inviting me along today.
Hello. If today's conversation has resonated with you in any way and it's provoked some thought or comments, then please do comment. We'd love you to subscribe as well to our YouTube channel so that you can get updates when we have more of these conversations with other sales leaders. And of course, if you would like to contact me directly, you can do at steve.bussey@salestrong.co.uk. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.